1st of July. It's a big anti-corruption and poverty protest. I understand it's already been declared illegal. Do you know, is it going ahead?
I think it will go ahead, but we've seen massive action countrywide with the army and police deployed, pretty much cutting off the major cities, preventing people from getting into the central business districts of all our cities right across the country. So I think it's going to be very difficult for any mass demonstration to take place tomorrow. But there's a groundswell of discontent, and I think that you'll see perhaps what I would call popcorn protests right across the country.
I'd like to speak to you, Dave, about what's going on with journalist Hopewell Chinono. He was arrested recently. Now, I understand that your son, Doug, has been representing him along with Beatrice and Tetwa. Are you able to tell us what the latest is with Hopewell, and also with your son, who has been arrested in the course of trying to defend Hopewell?
Well, just to correct that, he hasn't been arrested in trying to defend Hopewell as such. He has been arrested twice in the last year defending teacher trade unions. But coming back to Hopewell's case, Beatrice and Tetwa is the lead counsel. My son is junior counsel in the case. It was the bail appeal before the High Court was meant to be argued today. The state said that they weren't ready, and so it has been postponed again. We believe that this is another tactic just to keep people like Hopewell in prison so that they can get past this demonstration day of the 31st of July.
What charges is Hopewell facing?
The main charge he's facing is a charge of trying to incite violent demonstrations. Of course, the charges are completely spurious. I follow his Twitter feed, and I've never seen any tweet or any other document or anything that he's written ever suggesting that he has incited violence. He has, of course, called, along with many others, for this one-day peaceful protest tomorrow. But that has been turned on its head, and the state are trying to say that he's calling for the violent overthrow of the government.
He's not the only journalist in Zimbabwe that we hear of being arrested, and we know about civil rights organizers. From South Africa's side of the fence, it looks like the political temperature is rising in Zimbabwe. Is this true, or has it been really bad for quite a while now?
Sally, we're facing a perfect storm in Zimbabwe. As you know, we've been facing economic collapse for months. We've got inflation running at almost 1,000%. We've got 7 million people who are facing food deprivation. That was an FAO and United Nations figure as far back as December. And then on top of all of that, we've had revelations of massive corruption in the last 4 months, particularly corruption around the misuse of COVID funds, which has really angered people. And then, of course, finally, we've had the action of the government regarding COVID. The Minister of Health has been implicated in this corruption scandal. He was fired eventually by Mnangagwa, ironically, after pressure put on him by Hopewell Chinono, but he hasn't replaced that person. And our hospitals are totally ill-equipped. We have doctors and nurses on strike. And so we have the combination of all these factors, which has been building for months now. And really, it's reached this extreme crisis that we face right across the country. And it's resulted in this call for this demonstration tomorrow.
Now, also this week, we hear that white farmers who had their farms taken are to be repaid, and this is a deal worth some $3.5 billion. Obviously, this has been welcomed by farmers. Is this, I mean, it seems in the midst of all this difficulty, surely this is quite a positive development. I know you've been involved in this. Tell us more.
Well, in theory it is, but bear in mind that ever since Mnangagwa came to power, he's been engaged in an elaborate game of smoke and mirrors with the international community. He said that he was committed to tackling corruption. He said that he was committed to democracy and free and fair elections. He says that the country is open for business, etc., etc. And he said that he was committed to resolving the land question. And I'm afraid I have a somewhat cynical view regarding this agreement. Farmers themselves, of course, are desperate. Many of them are destitute now. Many have been off their farms for 20 years. They've never received any compensation. And so they're desperate to be paid out something. The government as well realizes that they won't be able to engage the West and institutions like the IMF and the World Bank until they tackle this crisis. And so they've come up with this agreement this week to compensate white farmers some 3.5 billion United States dollars. It sounds good, but the question I have is, where's this money going to come from? We can't even pay our teachers in the country, so one is hard pressed to understand where they're going to find the money to pay white farmers. So we think it's just a ploy to paint themselves in the best possible light, with no real plan to raise this money. You know, until they tackle some fundamental issues in Zimbabwe, for example, giving title to land, they are not going to be able to finance this amount. And quite frankly, our own national coffers are empty, so there's no domestic money available for this.
And what about I read somewhere that they might sell or cash in some of the government bonds, that sort of thing. Is that an option?
Well, the government bonds are pretty much worthless. This is a government which is bankrupt. We've got a currency which is rapidly depreciating. The treasury bills that a government has issued are pretty much worthless in real terms. So once again, I stress, this is a smoke and mirrors game. It's designed to deceive. And there really is no substance behind this, in my view.
You know, I think that the world was hopeful that when Robert Mugabe was removed, let's put it that way, that there would be perhaps a change. And you know, we've heard so many difficult things coming out of Zimbabwe for so long. And you have been one of those people who's been involved for a very long time. And I'm just wondering, if you look back at, say, the last 20 years, has it ever been worse than this, or have there been bleaker times than what Zimbabwe currently faces?
I don't think it's ever been as bad as this. And of course, not all of that is due to Mnangagwa and ZANU-PF. The whole country is facing the COVID-19 pandemic, which underpins everything in this country. But certainly the economy hasn't been as bad as it is since certainly 2007, 2008. But on top of this now, we have this dreadful shortage of food. And the current economic collapse has come, of course, on the back of the collapse in the late 2000s, 2007, 2008. So people had their initial savings decimated then, and now they've been decimated again. They just have less resilience. And then on top of that, quite frankly, Mnangagwa's been far more brutal than Mugabe. In my view, his government is far worse. It seems astonishing to say that, but it is worse than Mugabe. And so you've got this unique, unprecedented combination of events, and arguably the country is in the worst state it has been since independence.
Dave, you were saying that you know, your son Doug, who is the junior counsel helping Beatrice Mthethwa to defend Hopewell Chinono, who's still in prison. I'm sure you are concerned for his safety, as he has been arrested a number of times. Are you concerned for your own safety, telling us these things this evening?
Sally, I've been at this for 37 years, since I returned to the country in 1983, and I represented Joshua Nkomo and ZAPU in the 1980s. I've been detained myself. I've survived 4 assassination attempts in the last 20 years. So we've been through this before. It does give you a very thick skin. I'm obviously concerned for my son. But let me say this, that many thugs are bullies. They're bullies, and most bullies are cowards. And ironically, whilst it's not absolute protection, interviews even like this are a measure of protection. because this regime tends to go after the marginalized, the people who have a lower profile. And that, of course, gives me some protection and my son some protection. So whilst we're not completely immune from attack, we are less vulnerable than people who, for example, are living in the high-density suburbs who don't have a profile. I need to mention tonight Nduduzi Matutu, a journalist who, as we speak, is in hiding. The regime raided his home about an hour and a half ago. And so we're very concerned about people like Nduduzi and others who have a lower profile and are very susceptible to this type of abuse.
Well, I just want to thank you for your time this evening and for giving us such a comprehensive update on the situation in Zimbabwe. That's a human rights lawyer, also Treasurer General of the MDC, the opposition movement in Zimbabwe, Dave Coltop.
The clampdown of movement in Zimbabwe's biggest cities, Harare and Bulawayo, has already begun. Security agencies set up roadblocks on all major roads leading into the CBDs. Mass gatherings and demonstrations are set to be met with force.
I want to warn the organizers of this ill-fated demonstration that our security services will be vigilant and on high alert to appropriately respond to their shenanigans.
The demonstrations have already been banned and declared illegal by government, citing restrictions on mass gatherings due to the ongoing coronavirus. Demonstrations of such a nature have often turned violent as police clashed with protesters. The president has described the intentions as tantamount to terrorism.
The planned insurrection of 31 July 2020 is connected to the violence and destabilization that opposition elements have fomented since 2018, including the 1st of August 2018 violence and the 14 to 16 January 2019 violent disturbances which led to the loss of lives.
Activists and opposition parties have continuously accused President Mnangagwa's government of failing to deal with corruption, but analysts believe this time there's strong internal forces within his own party which are calling for drastic political reform.
It's very clear that the nature of the crackdown, the nature of the clampdown on civil and political liberties vis-a-vis the 31 July protests is more internal than external. You would know that the main opposition, which is the movement of democratic change led by Nelson Chamisa, despite supporting democratic forces who want to exercise their civil and political liberties, is not at the forefront of this thing. But ZANU, the kind of panic, the kind of threats that they are issuing, but also given the Politburo meeting where they brought the Director General of the CIO to talk about the fissures within ZANU or people who try to undermine Mnangagwa or want to trouble Mnangagwa, tells you that what we have are more elite contradictions within the party, differences within ZANU, which is a securocratic underleanings, which makes ZANU-PF fear. Because the people who took over power from Mugabe are fundamentally a securocratic group. So it is those differences within that securocratic group that makes the state or the faction belonging to President Mnangagwa panic.
Others believe that government is intimidated by the momentum the anti-corruption movement has, accusing the government of being afraid of a restive population.
My challenge with African governments is that whenever there is a cause of disagreement with their citizens, they use coercion and force to enforce their will. Now, this to me, it means that our government lacks confidence in itself. Because if they were confident in themselves and if they believe that the popular mandate, there is no need to put the nation in a state of emergency as they've done. So it actually exposes their weakness, because the coercion and the force they are using to impose their will on the citizens in order to prevent a demonstration, it exposes their weakness.
The Harare Magistrate Court had denied bail to journalist Hopewell Chinono and Jacob Ngarivume, the leader of Transform Zimbabwe, ruling they would continue to incite violence by promoting the July 31st demonstrations. But it seems the detention of the pair has failed to deter those invested in the protest. Ramabolani, SABC News.
And troubling news, particularly in recent weeks.
manhero akanaka mhuri yezimbabwe ino studio 7
tichitefenyura tiri muwashington dc. Lingalitshona njani Zimbabwe omuhle? Le yi-Studio 7 ekwethulela indaba ezimqotho ngeZimbabwe.
sisakaza sise
mangwanani akanaka vateereri, tinosangana zvekare mangwanani anhasi uri musi wechina chikunguru 30 2020 makateerera kustudio 7 nepfenyuro yenyaya dziri kuitika muzimbabwe dzamunopiwa nestudio 7.
Wamitoko vanomusiva mushe vamutsi vanomusiva kunyanga vanomusiva uruwayo vanomusiva kupinga vanomusiva Zimbabwe. Chanya chamisa, chanya chamisa, chanya chamisa, chanya chamisa, lambaga chanya, lambaga chanya. Lambaga chanya, ipapo lambaga chanya. Chanya chamisa we. Chanya chamisa. Chanya chamisa. Chanya. Chanya chipige. Chanya kumtoko. Chanya. Chanya pakwero. Chanya kukwanda. Diongo makomana. Up. Sanu ino musia mushe. Besanu ano musia mushe we. Besanu ano musia mushe. Nengwe na ino musia mushe we. Ipapo we. Chanya mushe. Chanya chamisa we. Chanya chamisa. Chanya ipapo. Chanya chamisa we. Chanya ipapo. Lamboka chanya. Lamboka chanya. Lamboka chanya. Lamboka chanya. Lamboka. Lamboka chanya. Lamboka chanya. Up. Ai koti ino musia mushe. Koni koti ino musia mushe. Rokoara. Chanya chamisa. Chanya. Lamboka chanya. Lamboka chanya. Lamboka chanya. Lamboka chanya. Lamboka chanya. Lamboka chanya. Apa. Chanya chamisa. Chanya chamisa we. Chanya ipapo. Chanya. Lamboka chanya. Lamboka chanya. Lamboka chanya. Lamboka chanya. Lamboka chanya. Chinjava no iswa, muno iswa, mushe mushe. Chinja muno iswa, mushe mushe. Aikoti no iswa, mushe mushe. Koni koti no iswa, mushe mushe. Nengwena ino iswa, mushe mushe. Ramboka chanya, oh ramboka chanya, oh ramboka chanya, ramboka chanya, oh ramboka chanya, oh ramboka chanya, ramboka chanya, ramboka chanya, ramboka chanya. Unoba ngoma yavaridzi, ngoma yekuvairidzi kinguru. Unokuvara unoiridza sei varidzi vaya vanenge vakateerera? Chero zvenyu muchimubira munomuziva mushe mushe. Chero zvenyu makamurova munomuziva mushe mushe. Chero zvenyu muchimubira munomuziva mushe mushe. Oramboka chanya, oramboka chanya, chamisa ramboka chanya, ramboka chanya. Rambakatanya, Rambakatanya, Rambakatanya. Buyera inomusia mushe mushe. Nyashanu inomusia mushe mushe. Chanya chamisa ramboka chanya, oh ramboka chanya. Kuweza nomusia, vanomusia mushe mushe. Ramboka chanya, oh ramboka chanya. Arare inomusia mushe mushe. Arare inomusia ramboka chanya, chamis ramboka chanya, ramboka chanya, ramboka chanya, oh ramboka chanya, oh ramboka chanya, oh ramboka kariba ramboka chanya, mutokowe ramboka chanya, kubanda ramboka chanya, mashigowe ramboka chanya, mashingo ramboka chanya, ramboka chanya, ramboka chanya. Mukoba ramboka chanya, oh ramboka chanya, ramboka chanya, ramboka chanya, ramboka chanya, ramboka chanya, ramboka chanya. Zimbabwe inomuziva
ino musiwa mushe mushe. Zimbabwe ino musiwa, bano musiwa mushe mushe we. Zimbabwe ino musiwa, bano musiwa mushe mushe we.
Rambakatanya, Rambakatanya, Rambakatanya,
Chamisawe,
Rambakatanya,
Chamisawe,
Rambakatanya,
Chamisawe,
Rambakatanya, Rambakatanya,
Ramba, Chanya, Chamisa, Chanya, Chamisawe,
Rambakatanya,
Ino musiwa, bano musiwa mushe mushe.
Rambakatanya,
Ino musiwa, bano musiwa mushe mushe.
Rambakatanya, Rambakatanya,
Ramboka,
Rambakatanya, Rambakatanya,
Ipapo,
Rambakatanya, Rambakatanya,
Andi wakomanda,
Rambakatanya,
Afgana direct,
Rambakatanya,
Andi,
Rambakatanya,
Ramboka Chanya,
Rambakatanya, 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 Rambakatanya,
All right, that's a beautiful rendition of the song Ramboka Dzam Waka Dzvanya. That's a song there from Solomon or Paul Madzore, one of the two, right here on Daily tonight. So we want to welcome you to another analysis pegged with news tonight here on zimdaily.com, and we are going to be looking at what has made the headlines tonight, including also looking at what the plans are for tomorrow. It is you are joining us here tonight here on Zim Daily. We are streaming live to our 4 different platforms: Twitter, zimdaily.com, Zim Daily YouTube page, and a few other destinations that we have planned for tonight. So we're looking at the latest news that is coming out of Zimbabwe, and we know all of you are tuned in tonight just to rally behind this protest. I know there's been a lot of preparations going on the past few days just to ensure that everything goes smoothly, but we have managed to experience a few hiccups. As you know, yesterday the police banned the protest, but there is no gain without pain. No gain, no pain, no pain, no gain. Yes, so we have everything lined up for you tonight. Later on in the show, I've got my dear friend, Advocate Chapwanya, who's also going to be joining me here on the show just to break down some of the news that we're getting from Zimbabwe tonight. And if you're joining us, we are broadcasting to you live. It's exactly 26 minutes to midnight where we are running this broadcast from, but we promise you we have a show pegged with analysis and news tonight. And if you're joining us, please stay tuned. We have got a lot planned tonight. Let's just look at some of the comments that we are receiving tonight here on The Sport. Today in the headlines, we're looking at the latest headlines that are coming out of Zimbabwe. So we know very well that yesterday we lost the decorated, was it yesterday or today maybe? Yeah, it sounds like yesterday, actually. Well, it was yesterday. We lost the decorated Air Marshal Terence Shiri, and there has been rumors throughout the past few days. Vamwe Chiti General had been poisoned, but we heard from the president tonight, well, earlier today, that the general actually succumbed to COVID-19. So we may never know the truth. As you know, Zimbabwe has been people don't just die in Zimbabwe, especially politicians. There's always someone behind it. We will never know, but what we are receiving as the official line on what happened to Terence Shiri, we know that he succumbed to COVID, according to the statement from the president. But we'll see what is going to transpire in the next few days. There are some that are alleging that the general was poisoned because he was behind the news that we've been hearing the past few days that another coup was in the making in Zimbabwe, and he happened to be one of those that was behind, and they had to eliminate him. As you know, conspiracies are quite easy to fly around. Once some of these things happen, tinongonzwa kuti sezvo munoziva muzano hapana munhu anongofa. I don't think there's anyone in Zanu who has ever actually died a natural death. Most of them have either been eliminated. That's what we hear. But we'll see what happens. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Zimbabwe, we are looking at the latest right here on the show, on the spot, today in the headlines. And we have a comment here from Kumbirai Magaisa, who is saying all looters must rot in jail. This has been a song that has been sung for many years. We know in Zimbabwe there has been quite a lot of looting, for as far as I can remember, since 1980. In fact, since ZANU-PF came into power, we know back in the 80s there was the Cressida scandal that actually cost the lives of Nyagumbo, Maurice Nyagumbo, who was also quite a decorated liberation war hero. And we had a Sandura commission that was meant to work on what actually transpired with the Cressida scandal. But that Sandura commission, we understand even up to today that it's still sealed. It has never been made public. But this has always been the order of the day in Zimbabwe. Many of the things we only hear, what we hear is only a tip of the iceberg. In fact, when they were looking at the RBZ scandal just a few days ago, we know that there were some figures that were being flown around. These are just the official figures of what was written down. But there are lots of loans that were given to ZANU-PF people or sympathizers that never made it to the books. Some of them is just money that flew around and no one took record of it. So what we saw just the past few days was just Bluetooth mode. But ZANU-PF is Bluetooth connected, right, with corruption. Advocate Chapwanya, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Right. Thank you very much for joining us. Help us to unpack some of the stories that we are getting from Zimbabwe tonight. This is a live show, by the way, in case you're joining us. We are looking and we are analyzing the news coming out of Zimbabwe tonight, and we're also going to be following the developments. As you know, that tomorrow, the 31st of July, there is a planned protest in Zimbabwe. There has been quite a lot of mixed messages around whether the protest is going ahead or not. We're going to be speaking to a number of our contacts back in Zimbabwe tonight just to understand exactly what's happening. Advocate Chapwanya, what are you hearing from the grapevine?
Right. Thank you, our viewers. Thank you for everyone who's joined us. I think we have heard from the horse's mouth, E.J. Mnangagwa, saying that is obviously against the protest tomorrow, and a lot of things have been happening today. We have seen quite a lot of pictures and videos circulating today. We've seen the soldiers, the police in almost all the towns in Zimbabwe, and some people were being beaten, were being abused, were being harassed, and we have seen some quite sad scenes, especially today, as they get ready for this protest in Zimbabwe. But having said that, I understand that at least by tomorrow we'll know the state of affairs as the day progresses. But from the look of things, it seems like the administration is in a panic mode. So, so people, they have to get ready for anything tomorrow, because we have also heard like some sad scenes. I'll just mention this one in particular, that the police, they've raided journalist Mdudu's home and arrested the sister after failing to locate Mdudu's Matutu in Bulawayo. So they've actually also accused him of, inciting public violence with regards to the demonstration, and also they've mentioned that the journalist has got some subversive materials to be used in tomorrow's anti-government protests. So this is one of the news. As we can see that the police and the security forces, they are actually targeting anyone who speaks against them, and especially with regards to the this demonstration tomorrow. But as things stand, we can see quite a lot of defiance from people to say that this demonstration will have to go ahead no matter what. But as we go into the night, we'll be unpacking obviously today's events and the news coming out of our dear motherland. Back to you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Advocate Chapkwanya, for that analysis. You are right here on zimdaily.com. This is a live broadcast in case you're joining us. We're looking at the latest news that is coming out of Zimbabwe tonight. This show is going to be packed with quite a lot of analysis of what is actually going on back home. Changobva mukutibata tiri pano naso tiri kutarisa kuti kwakamira sei handitika tese. We have been looking forward to the 31st of July, and there has been a lot of anticipation from all and sundry on what actually going to happen tomorrow. We know the regime has been at the forefront. They are trying by all means to make sure that the 31st, which is tomorrow, does not go ahead. But news that we are receiving from Zimbabwe tonight, all guns are loaded in terms of guns in courts, not actually the physical guns, but preparations have been made to ensure that tomorrow succeeds. So whoever is listening to this in Zimbabwe and happens to be on the ground, and I know there are plans also in many European cities and also in South Africa and also the US to protest at the Zimbabwean embassy. Also, there are many of us that want to show our solidarity with our brothers and sisters back in Zimbabwe. So those ones that are foreign based, like some of us, please let us show this is the little that we can do. At least if we can show the world that we are united, at least the world will see that we are now very serious about this issue of corruption. By the way, let me just emphasize this. It is very important for us kuti rangaridzane kuti the peaceful demonstration plan for tomorrow. We need to emphasize that it needs and it has to be peaceful. We don't want to give anyone a reason to clamp down on the peaceful protesters. Please just make sure that you are not involved in any violence. Anyone who's going to take part, we know how to express ourselves without necessarily being violent. I'd actually like, Advocate, we were looking at some of the comments that ZANU-PF had actually attributed to some of the senior people in ZANU when they were dealing with Ian Smith. I just want to share something here, if I may. I think this is a comment that is quite interesting. You know, the likes of Robert Mugabe, when he was still alive, he would talk so much about violence and all that kind of stuff. And this is a comment that has been attributed to him when he was at the peak of fighting the Smith regime. And the BBC interviewed him at the time, and they were trying to understand whether he was going to be involved, why he is involved in violence, because at the time, as you know, Robert Mugabe and all the freedom fighters, those that were fighting the war of liberation, they were labeled terrorists because of some of the tactics they were using at the time to try and dislodge the Smith regime. Listen to this comment. This is actually Robert Mugabe back in 1979. You would think, based obviously on some of the comments we would receive from the regime, you would think that these are people that have always been peaceful. Robert Mugabe is being interviewed here by a BBC journalist in 1979. Let me see if I can just pull this comment and then we can share it and unpack it and try to understand really what was going on. This is in August 1979, asked by a BBC reporter in 1979 whether he had any qualms over the use of violence on the Smith regime, Robert Mugabe answered, "We have tried all manner of peaceful demonstrations, with the biggest being in Salisbury." That it was, Salisbury is now Harare, but before independence, for those of us that to the millenniums, Harare used to be called Salisbury. So he says here, with the biggest being in Salisbury, in which Sally took part, these have not been successful, and hence the armed struggle. So for those who are saying the demonstrations must not be violent to be successful, we need to appreciate that the intention of the civil disobedience may be peaceful, but the participants are forced to become violent through not inaction or actions of their own, but by how the authorities react. Zimbabweans had to resort to violence to free themselves from the shackles of Ian Smith. So this is a statement from Robert Mugabe in 1979, and he says, "We have tried all manner of peaceful demonstrations, with the biggest being in Salisbury, in which Sally, Robert Mugabe, then wife, took part. These have not been successful, and hence the armed struggle. So for those who are saying the demonstrations must not be violent to be successful, we need to appreciate that the intention of civil disobedience may be peaceful." So what he's saying here is the intention of each and every Zimbabwean is of a civil disobedience, and may be peaceful, but participants are forced to become violent through not inaction or actions of their own, but by how the authorities react. Advocate Chapwanya, what's your comment on this statement?
Right. I see this statement from Robert Mugabe. I think to some extent it is very, very true. Because what we've seen time and again is that whenever there are demonstrations in Zimbabwe, people, they want a peaceful demonstration, right? But sometimes, even if they are peaceful, you see police start beating people, the soldiers start beating people without any particular reason. So at the end of the day, people now, they'll be forced to retaliate, So the thing is, like with the current administration at the moment, they know that obviously people, they want to demonstrate, right? But people are not inclined to violence until and unless the security forces go at them first. So this is what really happens in most cases, that when we demonstrate peacefully, then the police start beating people. So people, they are forced to retaliate. So at the end of the day, it won't be a peaceful demonstration because people are forced into a corner where they have to fight back. Can you imagine being beaten by 3, 4, 5 policemen with baton stick? You have to fight back to get out of the situation. So at the end of the day, people will be angry. People will be annoyed. People will be sad. That can lead now to destruction of property, looting, and all sorts of things, because as much as many people would want to be peaceful, there are so unruly elements who are probably planted within the the demonstrators so that they can cause these kinds of things. Then at the end of the day, then they are labeled like looters and people who are violent. Yet actually the intention of the people is to air their grievances against that particular government. So Robert Mugabe was right to say that they've tried all sorts of demonstrations, peaceful demonstrations, especially starting with Salisbury, which is Harare, right? But those have not been successful. Why? It's because the authorities, they have a go at people first, then everything will turn violent. Over to you.
All right, yeah, that's quite interesting. The comment from the late Robert Mugabe, our liberation hero in courts, and he is arguing that the intention obviously is to be peaceful, but the protesters are forced into a corner and where they will have to defend themselves, and in some cases use violence. I think we have also seen such type of activity across the world where the Black Lives Matter movements have kind of been involved. In fact, as we speak, there are still protests going on around the world, and some of them have they've turned into violence. But that's not a reason to stop a protest from going ahead, as long as you put the measures in place to ensure that the security forces are there to protect those that want to express themselves peacefully from the hooligans who want to cause havoc. But you don't blanket ban a protest just because you think that it's going to be violent. So this is where we are today. It's exactly 9 minutes to midnight, right here on the eve of the 31st. Takuda kupinda mu Jerusalem. Yeah, so this is how things look tonight. They are still, a lot of us are convinced that the protest is going to go ahead successfully tomorrow. And the plan here is to obviously voice our concerns around the fact that there is a lot of corruption in Zimbabwe. There's a lot of corruption that's been going on unabated. We have seen a lot of abuse of power. We've seen human rights abuses. Those that speak against all these things are thrown into prison for no apparent reason at all. I heard David Coulthard earlier was actually being interviewed by a news channel in South Africa, and he says he looked at all the social media comments that Hopewell Chingono shared on his social media platforms, and there was no single, he could not even find a single one that a single statement or stuff that Hopewell had shared that indicated that he was inciting violence. So this is the kind of regime that we are dealing with. As long as they are convinced or they are not happy or they feel that their grip on power is loosening, they're going to use everything within their power to ensure that the masses do not achieve their goal of presenting their petitions to the government. We're right here tonight looking at the latest news from Zimbabwe. Is there any other news article that you want us to look at, Advocate, before we go into the main analysis of the events tonight?
Right. There's one thing that I would want to, have a look at. Right. Yesterday, we understand that there was an article in ZimLife where President Mnangagwa, he confronted his ZANU-PF opponents with the help of the Central Intelligence Organization boss, Isaac Moyo. Right, where they went to the setting the Politburo meeting to accuse some ZANU-PF officials of plotting against him by conspiring with the opposition, and at the same time promoting the ambitions of President Constantine Chiwenga. So what is really happening here, what I can see is that there's some 6 serious divisions of factionalism within ZANU-PF itself. So we can actually see that all these people who are being arrested, accused, and stuff like that, they are kind of being used as pawns in the game of chess, right? Because it looks like there's serious divisions within the party itself, because some of the officials, they're actually supporting the demonstration that's going to happen tomorrow. Then the other camp is they're against the demonstration. So we can actually see that there's some serious divisions within the party itself. So it's like a kind of coachisana kind of thing. So you see, the Mnangagwa camp, from what I understand, is that they obviously don't want the demonstration to go ahead. But some of the people who are inclined to Chiwenga and other guys on Chiwenga's side, they actually want the demonstration to go on. So there's a kind of serious divisions within the party itself. So that's why we see all these arrests and all sorts of things, even these conspiracy theories to say that the late Prince Shiri was actually poisoned and he didn't die of COVID. So there are quite a lot of things going on at the moment, but we'll find out later in the, as we go.
All right. So what's your view? I think one of the things that we have been hearing from the news, the breaking news article that we broke last night, is the fact that there are some within ZANU-PF that want to see the back of Mnangagwa. And I'm just going to share something here. This is a lady. I think this is the lady Chizema who has been suspended from ZANU-PF. Apparently, she's being accused of plotting to unseat the constitutionally elected government of Emerson Mnangagwa. So this lady here, I think you can see the picture, Advocate. She's Mrs. Chizema. Apparently, she's the permanent secretary of health, and she is the sacrificial lamb. So last night, as you may be aware, there were reports that we got coming out of Zimbabwe to the fact that there's a faction within ZANU-PF that was planning to overthrow the government. And this lady here, they are saying that they found some placards at her home, some protest placards that they had kind of put together to participate in the planned protest for tomorrow. So I don't know, how much do you know about this lady here?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, looks like the sound is when somebody tried to call me here, then the phone just went up.
All right. I don't know if you can. We have a sound problem there, but we will come back to this article in case you're joining us tonight. We're just looking at the latest news that is coming out of Zimbabwe tonight, and one of the things that we are looking at, so takatarisa nasu Maneru toda kuzama kuti tinzwisise kuti mangwana zvinhu zvichafamba sei. There's a lot of anticipation from all of us. We want to see a successful protest. This is our constitutional right, and no matter the intimidation that we receive from the authorities, it is within our rights, and we are governed, or each country is governed by its constitution. So as long as we understand there's nothing that should stop anyone from participating in tomorrow's peaceful protest. And we need to emphasize that it has to be peaceful. At least don't give them a reason to clamp down on the peaceful protesters. So this lady that you're seeing on the screen is the permanent secretary for health and child welfare. We understand from the fireworks at the Politburo meeting yesterday, she is being accused of actually aiding the protesters, or those that are planning to protest tomorrow. They are saying that they found some material at her home that included placards and a few other things to indicate that she was actually somehow involved in planning of the protest tomorrow. And together with the vice president and also with a businessman and a former MP from Bare, Tendai Savanu. And I think she is the weakest link here. Advocate Chapwanya, do you think that this lady has been sacrificed because she's probably not as high profile as those that were being accused? All right, I think I've lost my guest there. Okay, go on.
Right. Can you ask again?
Yeah, so I'm just asking you to comment on Mrs. Chizema, who has been suspended from ZANU-PF for apparently planning or aiding or trying to assist the protesters tomorrow. This is a high-profile figure within ZANU-PF, permanent secretary for health. Do you think she's been sacrificed because she's not as high-profile as the ones that are believed to have been behind the protest from ZANU-PF?
Yeah, I think so, because you know in this game of politics, ZANU-PF, they've got these people that they sacrifice, but the actual war will be at the top. So these junior people, usually they are sacrificed for their own gains or for their own wars, because the real war is between the Mnangagwa camp and the Chiwenga camp. Obviously, we know that. But these junior ones, they are just used as pawns in the game of chess. So she's actually being sacrificed because of of this July 31st demonstration, which is going to take place tomorrow.
All right. Yeah, that's Mrs. Chizema there. It's unfortunate. This is why we always try to encourage people not to be involved with, especially with ZANU-PF politics. This is a typical lion that feeds on its own when the going gets tough. And it's unfortunate that Mrs. Chizema is being accused of planning to overthrow the government. But we know that this is someone who's not known that much, and until yesterday I didn't even know who she was, but she has been suspended from ZANU-PF. The accusations against her are that she was planning to overthrow a constitutionally elected government, or at least trying to participate in the demonstration planned for tomorrow. Let's look at some of the pictures that we're getting from Zimbabwe. So this picture was taken today. As you can see, we understand that the streets of Zimbabwe are quiet, well, have been quiet since early morning today, as the police were heavily involved in ensuring that no one actually gets into the CBD of Harare. So as you can see, pictures of the police here manning the streets of Harare, and we have those that were going on with their business of the day also in this picture. I don't know if you, what can you say about this? It seems to be quite peaceful, well, at least quiet in since afternoon today. Morgu, what's your take on the plans for tomorrow?
Hello.
All right, I think I'm struggling to. I'm not sure if my guests can hear me there, but here are the situation as we speak tonight. Things are really, really quiet in Zimbabwe tonight, and we're going to be looking at some of the images that we got as of tonight. We are just trying to unpack some of the plans for tomorrow, and ensuring, I think we all agree that it is within our rights to protest tomorrow. And one of the news articles that we are looking at tonight is the funeral of Parents Shiri. So the images that you're seeing on the screen, this is the presidium. This is the president and his two vice presidents. I don't know what they're called, but something to that effect. So this is the lady you're seeing in the picture here is Mai Shiri. She is apparently a sister to Parents Shiri. Parents Shiri, my understanding is I think he's survived by a son, and I also did check with some of our sources in Harare tonight. He was a single man. He was not married. I don't know whether he has ever been married, but we understand and the only surviving member of his family is the sister that you see in the picture here. She is Mai Chifamba, but she also goes by Mai Shiri. She's a sister to the late Parents Shiri. Also in the picture, you can see the security details behind there, and the two vice presidents and the president. This is at Parents Shiri, Air Marshal Parents Shiri home earlier today. So as we know, as we heard from the news tonight, Kuti Parents Shiri actually succumbed to COVID-19. There had been some rumors that we were flying around throughout the day. We heard that we're hearing that he had been poisoned, but there is really no evidence to support that. No one has actually come up with some evidence to support the poisoning of the decorated air marshal who passed away yesterday. Advocate, can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Do you want to maybe help us understand what's going on with the picture that we're showing on the screen?
Right. Oh, right. I'll start on the picture, you know, the one with the horses and the police on the horses.
Right.
Right. That one, you know, from the way it looks like a picture where they want to instill fear into the people, right? In anticipation of this demonstration, right? Because they've got that strategy where they want to instill fear into the hearts and minds of people to say, oh, we cannot go to this demonstration because we have seen police on horses, we have seen soldiers carrying guns, we have seen police chasing people and stuff like that. So what they are actually doing in that picture is they are actually discouraging people to, to attend the demonstration. So it's a picture where they have to plant fear into people so that people, they get discouraged because when I forgot, if we go, we're gonna get beaten, we're gonna get shot or anything like that. So that's their strategy to, to make people afraid of attending the demonstration. And the way, like horses, like if you see someone on a horse, that person who is in a power of authority, like an authoritative figure. You see, like even the kings, they always used to ride on horses, so that when people see them, they will worship them and, be afraid. So this is the kind of picture that's being, shown by ZANU-PF to say, look, we've got all the resources, to crush this demonstration. So in that one, they're actually planting fear into the minds and hearts of people so that they get, they don't get any strength to, to attend the demonstration.
All right. So what sort of things can we do here, at least from the diaspora, to encourage? Because oftentimes we are labeled cowards. We tend to speak more, and yet we don't want to be involved in the actual dirty work of participating in a demo. What sort of how do you respond to such accusations? Because I think what one of the comments that I had earlier today was to the effect that there is a lot of noise coming out of Zimbabwe, people that may or know very well that they are not going to attend, or they are not going to put themselves in the line of fire. But many on the ground in Zimbabwe do not have the appetite to demonstrate. It's mostly us here who are in the diaspora who are calling. We are trying to outsource our problem to those that are on the ground in Zimbabwe, and yet we don't want to be involved in the dirty work. How do you respond to such comments, especially when it comes to the fact that we are being accused of making too much noise, but we don't want to go all the way to participate?
Right. With all struggles, revolutions, we can't be at the same place, all of us at one time. People, they should understand that. Whatever support we are giving people in Zimbabwe while we are here, it should be appreciated, because we can't all be there at the same time. Remember, there are about 6 million people who are outside Zimbabwe. We can't all be there,
Right.
The one thing people should understand is that it is the diaspora community who are actually helping the country to stand on its feet, right? Without the people here in the diaspora, probably we'll be talking about something else. Remember, last week we discussed about how people send their remittances a year, which is over 1 billion, right? And that is what is keeping the country afloat. But now if we all say we are going to go to Zimbabwe to attend this demonstration, it's not possible.
Right.
We,
right.
however, support those who are on the ground to encourage them, whether, financially, whether morally, we'll do all those things to support them. Of course, we can't be there. That's why we are here. That's why we run programs like this to say, look, guys, it is your time. Even here, because we are going to demonstrate here in London, right? United States, South Africa, everywhere. So it's not only for people back home, it's for every Zimbabwean who is in and out of Zimbabwe. And I've seen a schedule for demonstrations, which is also going to happen in South Africa, I think Zambia, Namibia, and all other countries in SADC where they are Zimbabweans. They've been given permission to demonstrate. So for those people who will say that you guys are just inciting people to say, no, that's not true. That's not true. And there is no freedom without pain, as you said, no pain, no gain, But what we always encourage is to say that if people go to demonstrate, right, they should not be violent, right? They should have a peaceful demonstration, right? Because if they are violent, obviously these guys, they will point the finger to say, look at them, this is what we said, this is what we didn't want. But there is no way we can all be in Zimbabwe at one time. It's impossible. It's entirely impossible. So, but however, we do support people who want to demonstrate morally, financially, or otherwise. So that's that's my point. It's not like, you know, we don't want. But if I was in Zimbabwe, I would go to the demonstration. You know, obviously you have to carry yourself in a way that doesn't like put you into trouble.
Yes, and also we understand that there are plans to shut down the internet tomorrow, and just to ensure that there's no one communicating or people conniving to do stuff in Zimbabwe. What's your comment on that? I think, are there any provisions within the law? I know they've done this before, and they act with impunity, and pretty much ZANU is a law unto itself. But
the problem that we have with the administration is that you know, they've always been like that. You know, we've seen the Arab Springs revolutions in Iran, Tehran, where they block out the internet and everything, so that people, they don't send on messages, right? So that's how these regimes act, these tyrants act. They always want to suppress the people, whether through technology or otherwise. But what we are saying now is technology now is advanced. There's something called VPN. If people could get VPN, virtual private network, they'll be able to access any information, even if the government is blocked, like the main internet platforms or anything like that. So the VPN, I think it can be downloaded mostly. It's easy to download. I think there's a company in Zimbabwe, I've forgotten the name. They were actually offering their VPN to people to download for free or something like that. And they also giving some data, I think free data, I think 10 gigabyte or something like that. I'll try to find the article. So, with these kinds of government, because they know what's coming, so they always try to oppress people by blocking the internet, so that people, they don't have access. Because you'll be surprised to know that some of the things that we tell people back home, they say, but this is going to this is negative by internet. Then we feed them to say, this is what's happening in the city center. This is, people on Aruro or something like that. But back home, some of them, they won't even know. I've got a friend yesterday who was actually struggling to, with the network, even WhatsApp or anything, Messenger. They're struggling with the network. Right. So oppressive governments, they've got this thing where they always try to suppress people, through the blocking of the internet. But as I said, there are some other ways to circumvent this problem through the use of VPN, which is a virtual private network, of which most people, I think, they are aware of the VPN, apps or companies, which are I think quite a lot of them.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. So as you are hearing here, there's some ways in which you can actually bypass some of these filters. We know these regimes, all they will do, they will go to great lengths to ensure that they silence us. And my understanding is the internet, you cannot really shut it, because it's, as the name suggests, it's a connection. These are international networks, so you can put a plug on a specific IP address of some sort. But if you have a VPN, it allows you to assume an IP address of a country that you are not really in. So the way it would work, like, for example, once your VPN is running, if they're going to be using filters that are based on geolocation, so geolocation is how they actually pin your IP address, which allows you to go on the internet. They pin it to a location, which is Zimbabwe. So what the VPN allows you to do is you then assume a location that is not Zimbabwe. So those filters become basically useless. So you can roam in Zimbabwe and appear as if you're in the UK and stuff like that. So that's the way things work. So for those that would want to be able to circumvent some of these filters for tomorrow, and you want to ensure that you stay connected at least before tomorrow, try and ensure. In fact, for people in Zimbabwe, I think everyone should actually be aware of this, that you need to be ahead of the game. And those are zama kuti tionesane panapa nditi advocate kuti vanhu vatiri kutamba navo, we're dealing with the devil here, and it's always advisable that we are ahead of the game. And they are, even in the US, I think one of the challenges that the government, even with all the resources and the expertise and the technology, they struggle when it comes to VPN and encryption. And encryption actually is the white elephant, as James Comey referred to it in one of the interviews when he was asked what is the biggest threat to fighting terrorism in the US, and he was alluding to the fact that when people start using encryption, which obviously most of these VPN applications allow you to do that, we are not trying to encourage people to do illegal activities, but obviously some of these things that we need to do are legitimate. And if we are dealing with a regime that will go to any lengths to ensure that it silences us, we need to be ahead of the game. Let's look at some of the comments that we are receiving. Yes, go ahead.
Probably before you go on, there's one thing that I want to mention here, right? So this one thing, because you see the way ZANU-PF is acting towards this demonstration, they've taken it to mean that it's an MDC alliance demonstration, right? So in my own view, if someone is gonna go to the demonstration, I think they should avoid wearing any party regalia, because it will make them a target by the security forces. So it's better they just dress, normally without any party regalia, because it is very important. Because once they see like a red t-shirt or a red beret or anything like that, obviously they can target you just to to be a target, so that you can retaliate. So I think it would be a good idea not to wear any party regalia tomorrow. Hello, can you hear me?
Very much for that comment. We're just going to go through some of the comments that we are receiving here from our audience tonight. We are looking at the latest news in line with the planned protest for tomorrow, and we are also trying to look at ways in which how we can help each other to ensure that the demonstration goes ahead. This is our God-given right. We have a constitutional right to protest. Zaka, this is something that is within it's enshrined in our constitution. So whatever the police said yesterday, it's not worth even the paper it is written on, because they are basically, in fact, it's actually illegal what the police minister said yesterday, because he's going against the constitution, and there's no one above the law, by the way. So he cannot pretend to want to uphold the rule of law and yet breaking the same law that he wants to uphold. So the picture that you're seeing on the screen, it's Mnangagwa who's speaking to the late Parents Shiri's sister, Eusebia Chifamba, when he visited to console the National Heroes family in Borodale today. So this happened today, this had been written obviously for tomorrow's news. This visit happened today, and we see all the vice presidents here. We've got Kembo Muhadi, who's quite tall, and also our very own Chiwenga is in the middle there, and the president himself. So the president seems to be in gloves there, Mr. Advocate. I think, why do you think he's the only one who's protecting himself?
I've just picked on that, but first of all, let's analyze. I think I put a picture yesterday on our Facebook page, the mask for, Kembo Mohade.
Right.
I don't know who made him that mask, or is it some kind of brand of his own? It's actually covering his, probably, a third of his face. Well, I don't know. We'll just leave it there. Then the president, he's got some gloves. I've seen another picture last week. He was also wearing those gloves. It's like, I don't know, but everyone else doesn't have gloves. I don't know if it's a special treatment or anything like that, but it's amazing. It's amazing. He is actually protecting himself more than anyone else or any of the citizens. But the sad thing with that picture, if we can go deeper with that one, is because we've heard that several nurses and healthcare workers in the hospitals, they've actually contracted COVID-19 because there is shortage of PPE, personal protective equipment, which they must use when dealing with COVID patients. And some of them, they are contracting the disease because they don't have enough protective clothing. But look at the man here. He's got gloves, scarf, then a mask. And
yeah, but the mask that he's wearing here, it's the cheaper version of these masks, right? That doesn't look like a genuine one, but at least you can tell from the vice presidents, they have the N95. These are surgical masks that we understand are even more effective. But you have the president wearing one, I think this is $1 for 2 or something, or $1 for 20 mask, and then he is also in gloves. Just to go through, this is it's the same. These pictures were actually taken earlier today. You see the president here with the generals. I believe that's Valerio Sivanda, or one of the senior army generals, and you've got Mai Muchinguri there, Mai Kashiri. I think the other one behind here looks like Kazembe. And then you've got the president himself in a very cheap mask there, and it's protected by gloves as well. Yes. So these images that you're seeing were taken at the late parents' Shiri's home in Borodale today, when the president and the rest of the security forces were paying their respects. And I have another picture here of them again doing this COVID handshake, trying to ensure that they protect themselves from, since Parents Shiri is said to have died from COVID, so I'm sure they just want to make sure that they're protected. Yes. What do you have to say about the images that we're seeing here on the screen?
I just wanted to say, the mask that he's putting, right, it's not an N95 mask. We can actually see it, right? So him being the leader of a country is supposed to have like a rightful mask on his face. So probably what you would say is that he's actually flouting social distancing rules, because that mask, we have seen pictures of Parents Shiri when he was in parliament. He was wearing that, but as he said to have died of COVID-19, which means that both Parents Shiri's pictures, they were quite recent when he was talking to Douglas Mwanzora in parliament. So we can actually see here that, at least he should have a proper N95 mask is required, but he has got a cheap mask like the ones that we buy here for 50p or £1. So it's not
$1 for 20, yeah?
$1 for 20. It's not helping the situation, actually,
right,
because yeah, but it's,
all right,
very
that's him there again. I think these images are actually coming from the whole of the presidium was at Parents Shiri's home earlier today to pay their respects. I think we also have them here practicing social distancing. This is the Borodale home of Parents Shiri, the two vice presidents and the president himself. You also have the security details behind him there. There's another interesting picture here. This is a picture of the vice president. We understand that the VP and the relationship they have, it's more of a young brother to bigger brother relationship. The young brother here being Chiwenga, because I understand he's quite young when you compare him to the president. And you can see here how he's prostrating, trying to listen to whatever the president is saying here. At least he has some form of respect. Unless all these rumors that we hear about them squabbling, they might just be rumors, isn't it? It's not really. I think at least from this picture we can see that there seems to be some mutual respect there. I think the vice president seems to respect the president from the way that he is conducting himself here.
Yeah, I think this is just a show of because they are always in the public domain, isn't it? So they have to show some kind of respect. But we know that these guys, they'll end up like being like Cain and Abel. They'll end up killing each other. We know that there are divisions because they don't trust each other. That's for sure. So they are more like Cain and Abel. But that picture, that's just a public face. Obviously, they wouldn't want to show their disagreements in public. So that poster there, it's more of a public show but what is behind the scenes is something else. Because remember we've talked about the Politburo meeting yesterday when Mnangagwa went into the meeting with the Central Intelligence boss, Isaac Moyo. But actually the discussion, the intelligence report was actually directed at Constantine Chiwenga to say that we are watching you. That's why they ended up sacrificing these sacrificial lambs like Claveria Chizema, but actually we know the game that, you cannot trust anybody in politics. That's how these guys are.
So you are looking at the images from earlier today. These images were actually taken at the late parents' series home earlier today when the president and his two vice presidents visited the home to pay their respects. I think this is the bit where the president is said to have confirmed that Parents Shiri actually died of COVID-19, dispelling the rumors that have been flying around, as you were hearing that some are suggesting that Parents Shiri was poisoned because he was also. It's quite interesting actually looking at the timeline in which he is kind of been eliminated just a few days before the protest. Do you think it was done to at least warn anyone within ZANU-PF or within the military if they are planning to take part in these demos that they will be met with the same fate? What's your view on that?
Yeah, definitely. Because within ZANU-PF, somebody told me, people know rather Kutanzi ZANU-PF, so the likes of Parents Shiri from the other report, because actually I've read an article where the relatives were saying that when he came from was it Bindura, where they had a meeting, his driver started to vomit. Right, he started to vomit after they were given, they'd eaten some food, probably after a few minutes or so when they were probably coming back to Harare, started to vomit, sweating and all sorts of things. Then also later on, Shiri also started to vomit, sweating, and the relatives, they said it was a confirmation. There was a confirmation from the doctors that the signs were actually consistent with some kind of food poisoning rather than signs of COVID. Yes. So we really don't know until probably if they do a post-mortem, no one will ever know the outcome of the post-mortem, whether it was COVID or food poisoning. But
Yeah,
if it was food poisoning,
they might not
will,
even carry one out because of COVID, isn't it? COVID has kind of made it very difficult to go down that route of trying to find out what exactly has killed someone. That's why you have some scientists to argue that some of these deaths that we are receiving that are being attributed to COVID, and anyone who even gets hit by a car, he's being added to the statistics, to the COVID statistic, because that's the more that's what it kind of supports the narrative here. So we know that he could have been poisoned, and still they would use COVID as a way of covering their illegal activities. We are looking at the latest news here coming out of Zimbabwe, and the images that you're seeing on the screen, these are images from earlier today. This is the Vice President Constantino Chiwenga addressing the mourners at Parents Shiri's home earlier today. Actually, those that are also set just on the other side, you have, I think that's Valerio Sivanda on the left. I don't know if you can work out who the rest of these people are, but with the masks you can't really tell. But I think I've picked Valerio Sivanda, who's the head of the army. I don't know who else you can.
From this angle, it's really difficult. Just Valerio Sivanda, then Chiwenga. I can't really see other guys who are behind, who are sitting behind, because it's really difficult to see from this angle. Right. There's a comment which is been sent by Brian Malone Kaspa. He's saying that ED is not a president. Yes, we know that he's not a legitimate president, so don't be annoyed to say that we're saying president. We know he's not a legitimate president. It is just a title that we are using, in this video, not per se to say that we understand he's the legitimate president of Zimbabwe. He's just a president, but an illegitimate president. Thank you, Brian.
He's an illegitimate president. Who is that? Do you see Kirsty Coventry there? Is she Kirsty or just some random diplomat? I don't think that's Kirsty, isn't it?
Right. It doesn't look like it's Kirsty Coventry. Probably
these are some of the mourners that pictures taken from the images that we are showing you right now. At least a couple of images we've been showing. These were taken earlier today at Parents Shiri's home. These are mourners that are gathered to pay their respects, and we are just looking at the stories or the news that making the headlines today. We'll be going into analyzing some of the comments that we're receiving, and we are also going to go into the planned protest that the 31st. It's already the 31st because it's 27 minutes to 1 a.m. here in the UK. We are looking at the latest news. This is the 31st. It is on. It's on the peaceful protest. According to our sources, everyone is ready, and we have everyone ready to participate in the protest tomorrow. Whatever you do tomorrow, let us ensure that we are not involved in violence. Over to you, Mr. Chwan.
Right. We have also got some news to say that the members of the Central Intelligence Organization who are terrorizing opposition members in Kariba, and they were seen brandishing some guns. And there's a plot by the state security agents to abduct a member of the MDC Alliance Youth Assembly in Kariba. So this is some news coming in. So we know that there are so many guns out there tonight in anticipation of the protest tomorrow. So just to be careful, what you say, what you wear, and where will you be, because as we have seen from the pictures of police on horses, their cars, they are already preparing for the demonstration tomorrow. So obviously we encourage our people to be not to be violent, just to be peaceful. It should be a peaceful protest tomorrow. Don't be involved in any violent activities. Otherwise, they will pick you up, or they will target you and harass you. Right. Just wanted to see if we and probably we can discuss this a little bit more. The arrest of Dudu's Matutu's sister, because when they went there to his house in Bulawayo, they arrested the sister who is not politically involved, and they told her to say that if we do not get Matutu, then we are taking you. So this is one of the developments, because they said Matutu has got some, is suspected of possessing some subversive material for youth Fridays and government protests. So it seems like the regime is just targeting journalists, human rights activists, anyone who's suspected or who is perceived to be, an opposition member. So it's very sad, but it's not uncommon for ZANU-PF to use these tactics. How can they arrest someone's sister just because they failed to locate the person that they want? It is very, very, very unfair situation. I don't know what you have to say about that.
Yeah, this is one of the these evil regimes, as you know, even with any evil regime that we hear of, they use these tactics of trying to, they get hold of a family member, and then they use that family member as a pawn to try and get whoever their target is. And we see this happening even in countries like North Korea and the stuff. I remember watching a documentary of people that escaped North Korea, and what that means is basically if you escape, you're basically signing a death warrant for your family members. So they will persecute them. They throw them into camps where even hungry dogs, some of the reports that we hear of things that happen in North Korea are the same tactics that are being used by ZANU-PF here. If they can get hold of whoever their target is, they resort to these dirty tactics of targeting innocent people, like in the case of Mduduzi Matutu's sister, whom we understand has been arrested tonight because they could not get Mduduzi, who is also a renowned journalist, and they are, as far as we are concerned, is a journalist just like Hopewell. So there's no reason for the government to target him other than obviously to try and silence him. So this is the kind of animals that we're dealing with in Zimbabwe. It's unfortunate that this has been going on for so long, but we have a feeling, and I'm very convinced that we may actually be coming to the end for ZANU-PF. What's your feeling?
Right. Still on the Matutu issue here. Right. I've got a warrant of search and seizure. I'll read it to our listeners and viewers, and you will see that it is the same modus operandi that they used in arresting Hopewell Chingono. So the warrant of search, it goes like this: that information has been received on oath that there are reasonable grounds for believing that there is in the possession or under the control of Mduduzi Matutu. They actually said at her place, that's some kind of error there. At her place of residence, right? It is place of residence or business, cellular phones, computers, cameras, offensive or subversive material, or any material likely to be used during the illegal demonstration, and any material used to manufacture any material likely to be used during the demonstration, which on reasonable grounds is believed to be concerned in the commission or suspected commission of an offense, and are on reasonable grounds believed may afford evidence of the commission of an offense to participate in public violence is defined in section 187 of the Criminal Law and Codification Reform Act, chapter 923. Right. Further on, the warrant says it is suspected that Mdudu's Matutu of such a number in Mahachla Blawayo is organizing and advocating for illegal demonstrations against the government of Zimbabwe, which turns out for the 31st of July 2020. He is believed, listen to this one, he is believed to be communicating with the Zimbabweans through his cellular phones and other various means, intending by the communication to persuade or induce Zimbabweans to engage in public violence. Furthermore, he is believed to be manufacturing, storing, and distributing to members of the public some materials for use during the illegal demonstrations on or about the 31st of July 2020. Right? So they said to that end, you are authorized to search this person identified in this warrant, his residential and business premises. So this is the warrant and seizure. Search, and it's really amazing how on earth did they end up arresting Matutu's sister, yet her name doesn't appear on the warrant of search and seizure. And to think that he is involved in manufacturing and distributing to members of public some materials, so we can actually see that it is the same thing that they used against Hopewell to say that they wanted to seize the cameras and the laptops and computers. This is the same thing that they've just done to Mdudu's Matutu, and it's the same modus operandi that they used to target journalists and human rights activists.
Right. Yeah, it's quite interesting because, like you're saying, there's no meat to the bone that they are trying to chew here, because there is no evidence to support the arrest of Matutu's sister. But it's that it's what we are seeing here. That thief that breaks into a home and then they do not find anything valuable to steal, and then they just walk away with something because they imbava, you know what I mean. Saka those rukuitika pana about Mapurisa broke into Matutu's home. We hear earlier this evening they were looking for Mdudu, who is a journalist, just like Hopewell, and these are quite prominent in the sense that they have quite a large following, and they are obviously clamping down on the likes of Matutu and Hopewell, because they know that the masses listen to them. Especially in the case of Hopewell, he had garnered so much. I was also an ardent follower of Hopewell, and I still feel he is one of the most fearless journalists that we've ever had come out of Zimbabwe. When he started blogging or tweeting or at least writing on his social media page, I was convinced that he was operating from abroad. But when I learned that he is actually based in Zimbabwe, I was even emboldened or encouraged to know that there are people out there that are fearless. And this is a guy that took the bull by the horns and exposed all the corruption that was going on. And he was spot on every issue that he picked on. You would support it with some evidence, that irrefutable evidence that pretty much all of us would identify with. So this is the Zimbabwe that we are dealing with. As Zimbabweans, we are at a time, we are now at a crossroad here. We need to ensure that we keep the pressure on. This is not by in any way illegal. We are allowed, or it is our constitutional right to protest. If there is anything, this is why we keep emphasizing peaceful protest. There is nothing wrong about engaging in a peaceful protest. In fact, the COVID, the public health reasons they used to ban the protest yesterday have nothing to do with the Constitution. These are things that they are making up as they go along. So the Constitution gives us that right. I'm sure those that penned the Constitution knew that one day there will be COVID, so that's why there was no provision for banning protest on those grounds. Okay, let's look at the comments here. Mnangagwa is the chief of corruption and abductions, and ZANU-PF is a mafia group. Thanks, Alan Magwagwa, for that comment. I think there's the common theme we're seeing here tonight is everyone is convinced that ZANU-PF must go. Even some serious, I know some guys that support ZANU-PF. Most of those people are now beginning to have second thoughts whether the ZANU-PF actually deserves their support. I think we used to have people that would argue on some very serious points. I don't know where you are, advocate, whether you have such. I think at some point here in the UK, we had people that used to, they would tell you ZANU cheti cheti. But I think with what has been happening the few months, everyone is now starting to know who ZANU-PF is.
Yeah, definitely. I'll start with this other article, which actually said that today some state security agents, they even went through as far as shutting businesses and tearing exemption letters. And some policemen, they were actually, ordering people out of Zupco passes. I think I've seen a video circulating. I'm totally amazed. Why on earth those, yesterday it was the 30th when they were banning people, beating people, right? And why didn't they let people go on about their business? So it's like they are anticipating that, most people, they are in favor of the demonstration, right? So now they took a day just to make sure that they plant fear into the people so that tomorrow there won't be any demonstration or any people congregating. So it's very sad that, obviously some businesses today, they had to close and they've lost, revenue, they've lost money because of the closure of their businesses by the security forces, right? So it's, as I said before, it's a matter of instilling fear into people because people are really fed up. Going back to your point, people are really fed up. Even those die-hard ZANU-PF supporters, they no longer want ZANU-PF, right? I understand, right? Here in the diaspora, we do have a lot of people who are ZANU-PF members, right? And, a lot of them, I know, they actually got their residence permit because they felt that they were being persecuted by the Mugabe regime, and they actually, got their residence or their permanent residence on that basis. But we know
these are Trojan horses, isn't it?
Yes,
those people that
yes, because because if someone says ZANU-PF is good, everything is okay, why would they leave the country? They should just stay there.
Yeah,
right?
this is the same argument that we used to have with some of the diehard ZANU-PF supporters that ended up in the diaspora, and we're asking them, why are you here? I mean, honestly, if you guys feel that ZANU-PF is the best thing that has ever happened to anything, you really want to be with and these are the same people that come here and they will say, like you're saying, that they would have used whatever means possible to ensure that they get their residency and all that, and yet they are just wolves in sheep clothing, and we see a lot of this. But like we are saying, we are seeing at least a shift. Of course, you have some of them that are diehard. They will tell you whatever ZANU-PF does. They don't even want to know the substance of the issue, as long as it's ZANU-PF ziri right zakadaro. So this is the challenge that we face. And as you know, even Chiwenga's kids, understand, are here. They are in Wales somewhere, and they live a lifestyle that we can only hope for. And they are right here in the UK. Pretty much all those senior ZANU-PF officials have got their kids either hiding in the US, or at least they're shielded from all the rot that their parents are are responsible for, and most of them are just enjoying the Western lifestyle, which their parents tell us that it is the worst thing that has ever happened to a human being. We are looking at the latest news. There is an interesting comment here. I'm just looking at the icon from Maimona. She's saying here ZANU-PF must go, and there's some bees there. I think she's plotting some nyuchi for tomorrow. Yeah. Can you see it? I don't know. I never really got to read that story, but there was a story somewhere this week, I think earlier this week, that actually made quite a lot of headlines around Masoja Garumwa Nenyuchi. Can you give us a bit of some insight into what happened there?
Right. Apparently, they ended up denying it, but they always have to deny, isn't it? So the story goes like this: that they went to, I think, Kwazana 4, where they started taking people's things. I think probably the police and the army, in their vehicles. So the story goes like this: that they went there and started confiscating things, beating people up, taking their things. Then there was this lady who is apparently called Gogontunge, right? So they took her stuff. Then as they were putting the stuff in the cart, those small carts, and they were pushing, because most of the time when they raid people, they just take people's stuff and go. So apparently it is said that just a swarm of bees came from Norway.
Yeah.
From Norway, then it just came under the cart, the scotch cart, kind of. Then as they were trying to push,
I thought I saw there was even a video linked to that
I
incident,
didn't see
right?
the video. Yeah, but then they said the bees started biting those soldiers and in the police, and they were screaming and running to their to their lorries. So
right. So that's Maimuna there saying ZANU-PF must go. I think she's got her gun loaded with bees for tomorrow, right? It's going to unleash. All right. So we are looking now at the comments that we're receiving from our audience tonight. We are right here on Zim Daily, and this is a live show. We are just looking at the events as we have now gone into the 31st of July for those that are in the UK and Zimbabwe and South Africa and most of Africa. Actually, we are now, today is now the 31st of July, and even for our friends that are down under, I think they're way into the 31st. And this is the day that's meant to liberate us from this regime that has been tormenting us for years. So these people go into the streets tomorrow regardless. So that's my general there is saying that whatever everyone thinks of tomorrow, people are going to go into the streets. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. Enough is enough. This is the common theme that we are seeing tonight. Free Zimbabwe now. We haven't yet seen it. I think yesterday we had someone we had a ZANU-PF, we had someone in the audience who was defending ZANU-PF, at least the death of Parents Shiri, and she was arguing that most of the stuff that Parents Shiri is alleged to have done, it's just all talk and no evidence. There's no evidence to support that he was involved in the massacres in Matebele and all that.
Yeah, that one is a well-known ZANU-PF supporter. I think that's a Ramai Mash. I think she used to be called Ramai Mash. I think she's called in the surname. She's a well-known ZANU-PF supporter. Whatever evil deeds they do, she's always supporting them, because everyone knows that Parents Shiri was part of the 5th Brigade that caused all these atrocities in Matebele in the 1980s. So for someone to come and say he didn't do nothing wrong, yet there are people who are aggrieved. Most of the Ndebele people, they are aggrieved because of what Parents Shiri did to their relatives. Right. We could hear harrowing stories of pregnant women being sliced open, and being put in a hut, then being touched there. So this is
and there's no way someone would just pull Parents Shiri's name out of possible 16 or whatever million people in Zimbabwe. And why Parents Shiri? I mean, Vanomuvengere, right? I mean, it could have been anyone, right? So there's always fire with every smoke. They can't just be smoke without fire.
Yeah.
Free Zimbabwe now. That's Emmanuel Nyakonda. Thanks for your comments. I don't know if there's any comments that you want to highlight as well from your angle there. Yes.
All right. Let me just see if they. Right. Emmanuel Nyakonda says he's got a real video. I think this probably is the Nuchi video.
Yeah.
Probably. I'm not sure. But also there's someone who said that they can donate 800,000 bees. I don't know how they are going to do that. Yeah, I've seen an article where someone said he is willing to donate 800,000 bees for tomorrow's demonstration. So, because apparently there's an article which said that bees are easier to train than sniffer dogs. I've seen it. I think some countries they actually train bees. I don't know how they train them, but you will look into that probably. With another further discussion on that one. So it's very, very possible. Right. I think here there's a comment from Kevin. Right. There's more about the VPN. Right. I think for those who want to download the VPN, you can read Kevin Kevy's comment on how you'll be able to access the virtual private network. Right. I think he's given a summary there on how you can do that, so that, because obviously tomorrow the administration, or probably by now, they probably blocked the internet, so that people, they don't access the internet, and they are at least blocked from knowing what's going on. So Kevin there, he has put instructions on how to get the the VPN should you wish to. Or see if there is. Right, there is comment from Wilson. He says this government we are very sorry to hear that, Wilson. We are very sorry about that. Probably if you could want to send us a comment through our inbox, I think we would at least know what really transpired, because I've seen some videos where people were being beaten by the police. They were being dragged out of cars. They were chased from buying food or groceries, and everyone was just running away. So it's very, very sad that we have to come to this point where people are victimized just because they are not happy about the current administration. Right. I think for now that's what we have. If there are any further contributions,
all right. Yeah, we can obviously always look at some of the comments that are coming. I think there is another comment here from Kudakwashi Marenga. We're looking at the plans for tomorrow, for today. Those that are already in July 31, we know that this is a day that we've all been waiting for. July 31 is the day that Ratichabuda Tese, Ratichasulunguga Tese. This is at least that's the understanding from everyone, that we need to do this. I think it is not illegal. We are fed up. We've had enough. I think that's the common theme across almost every Zimbabwean from all walks of life. We are saying that we've had enough. Zvanyanya anditika. So enough is enough. And the comment here says, Mwari wedenga zviratidzei mazuva ranhasi. You don't put us to shame. You know what you're doing. Mazvita Mwari tanamata mstarajes. That's a prayer there from Kudakwashi. Thanks for your prayer. I think we know that the heavens are not going to remain silent. ZANU-PF Nedambu Zorao must go today. The image that you're seeing in the background there is an image that was taken earlier today. So this is, I believe, First Street. Is this First Street in Harare?
Like First Street in Harare.
Yes. You've got Truett's there on the right, and then there's the Edgar's. Yeah, that's well, at least this is how it looked earlier today. It's the whole city is deserted. We know the reasons why it's deserted, because the regime made sure that they put roadblocks across all the entry points into the CBD. So they closed all the businesses, they closed everything. I mean, I think just to the idea that everything has been closed is also, I mean, contributes to the success of this demonstration, isn't it? At least
Yes.
if we had seen people continuing with their business as normal, then maybe we would have felt that no one is actually taking this seriously. But the response from the regime kind of gives us, at least we are already maybe 1-0 against the government here, because at least we've managed to bring pretty much everything to a standstill. What's your view on that?
Right. Yeah, because the way they are, they are acting like the way they did today. Right. With the demonstrations, right? With the demonstrations, what can happen is there are different kind of demonstrations. There's a protest, right? There are protests where people go into the streets and protest against the, the government or their policies or anything like that, right? That effectively can also bring down a government, right? Then they can be a stay away, right? Which is also another demonstration, but people will be at home, they won't go into town or do any business. That one also has got the effect of also bringing a government down, right? So in this case, they haven't done themselves a favor by beating people to go home and stuff like that, right? Because if people can, like, say for example, plan another stay away where people cannot go into town or anything, like say for a week or a number of days, it will even have the same effects like going on the streets. So they haven't done themselves a favor by bringing in horses and soldiers with guns and everything. Either way, they will be affected, right? Because the moment they close businesses down, which means that businesses are losing revenue and they are also losing taxes, right? Like corporation tax and so forth, all these taxes that they charge and the levies and everything, and those transactions that they charge the 2% or whatever, right? So they're not doing themselves a favor. They are not doing themselves a favor. The only favor they can do is to allow the peaceful demonstration, like for that day, and allow people to air their grievances,
right?
And act on those.
Sorry, I don't know that one.
And act
All
on
right.
those grievances, right? So they're not doing themselves a favor in any way. So
Right.
that's what I think they.
Okay, yes, we are looking at the comments again. Lorraine Bedzi says Triple C. I believe you are an MDCA supporter, and this is all she has to say about the planned demonstration for tomorrow. We are looking at the comments again that are flowing through this program. If you're joining us, this is on the spot, looking at the headlines that are coming out of Zimbabwe. This is also a live discussion. If there's anything that you would like to say or to contribute towards the plans for tomorrow, please let us know. One of the things that we've received tonight is the fact that the government is planning to ban or to switch off the internet today, so that they try and reduce or ensure that there's no coordination between or amongst the people that are planning to demonstrate. We know that they are more than willing to go to that length, and we've got examples and examples of them using such tactics. I think earlier this year or sometime last year, they switched the internet off for the whole country, and this actually kind of led to I think it did actually more harm than good, because everyone I remember some of the news articles from the Western media attacking the government, that this is such tactics cannot be expected from a country that claims to be a democratic country. So the fact that you could, even North Korea, where there is no internet, they don't shut it down, just to show you how bad Zimbabwe is. So they would not go to the length of shutting the internet down because they don't have it. There you go. So network I sat here at Zimbabwe, I'm using VPN. So I think this is someone listening in from Zimbabwe. Thanks for confirming that, Stana Alai Chatora. Please keep us updated if you hear of anything regarding the shutdown of the internet. We would love to know. I think there are some ways that you can things that you can do actually to bypass or to at least cheat these filters or to circumvent the filters that they're trying to put in place. Because if they shut the internet down, it also affects them because they are pretty much reliant or dependent on the internet. So it's like shooting themselves in the foot. What they will probably try and do is to blacklist certain ranges of IP addresses that they allocate for you to go on the internet. So for you to be able to circumvent that, this is where the VPN kicks in, because the VPN allows you basically to bypass their geolocation based filters, and it also allows you to encrypt the traffic. So what basically happens is you what they can only see pretty much the headers, not the actual payload or the actual information that they need to block you. So it makes it very difficult. Most of these VPN are SSL based, which is a secure secure layer that basically allows you to encrypt the traffic. SSL is what is used mostly on the internet where you see HTTPS and stuff. So network I said at Zimbabwe. I'm using VPN. Okay, thanks for that. Guy and I think this is directed at ED. ZANU-PF must go. This is a comment that is coming from Kumbirai Magaisa and Chaka Chaya Nas. So that's Roy Takudzwa Muja. That's a comment. I think all of us, we are raring to go, isn't it, Advocate?
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
Yes. So the plan is to ensure that at least by tomorrow night, we will be, if everything goes well, we might be in a new Zimbabwe. At least maybe it is the beginning of that new Zimbabwe. Let's look at some of the comments from our audience tonight. We are looking again at Stana. Stana says, I'll go Mu Street to express my concern about Maria Gabiwa, Nema Bishop, and ZANU-PF. I think Stana Vanenge my previous Nema Bishop, Varugutio, I mean, he actually singles them out from the pack, and he says my bishop and ZANU-PF. Dofunga Maria Gajiwa nema bishop irikuwa rwadza sterek.
Right. Yes, definitely. Right. There's another article here, with regards to the current situation of Zimbabwe. Actually, Peter Hain, right, who is a former British cabinet minister, is actually called on for extension of sanctions on Zimbabwe because of this, violation of human rights in Zimbabwe. So Peter Hain is saying that, the sanctions, they must be, extended against the key ministers and security chiefs over what he labeled is escalating human rights violations in Zimbabwe. So this is Lord Hain, or Peter Hain, who was a former British cabinet minister. So, they are aware about the three women, Cecilia, Cecilia Netsai and Joanna Mamombe, who were abducted and abused, quite recently. So because of these violations and human rights abuses, he is actually calling for an extension of sanctions against the key ministers, not for the country, but against key ministers and security chiefs in Zimbabwe over these continued violations of human rights in Zimbabwe. So that's one of the articles that we
that's quite interesting, the Advocate, because I think Peter Hain was one of the few senior British politicians who tried to reach out to when Emerson Mnangagwa came in. I think he was given the benefit of the doubt, and I think he was leading the efforts to try and re-engage Zimbabwe with the United Kingdom at least. And he went to Zimbabwe. I remember seeing the pictures, and all of us were quite annoyed by that because we felt they can't just start re-engaging without setting conditions or rules of engagement. But we gave him the benefit of the doubt, but obviously we knew that it would lead to nothing. And now he has now come to the full understanding of what type of a beast we are dealing with. And he has turned his back on, I remember he actually, when they went to try and engage with ED, there was this lady who also resigned. I don't know if I can, if I can pin her name down, but she's got like a strange Zimbabwean name, but she's a doctor. I'll see if I can remember. She's also a journalist, but she was one part of that entourage that went into Zimbabwe to try, with the likes of Trevor Ncube, who heads the AMH Holdings, the biggest independent newspapers in Zimbabwe. They were all part of those efforts to try and say, no, there is a new sheriff in town. And they were trying to push or to convince the world that we can at least allow ED, we can give him some breathing space and see whether he will implement some of the reforms. But it's almost 3 or so years on, no reforms, and things have actually gotten worse. When I was listening to David Coulthard earlier, he alluded to the fact that he thinks this regime is even worse than Robert Mugabe's, with some of the things that he has seen coming out of this regime. We have here a comment from Emmanuel Nyakonda: bring back our money. I think that's the main reason for the planned protests. Mari dzakabiwa dzanyanya, and we lost 15 billion. I think the figures that we're talking about are just a fraction of the 15 billion. Yes. What's your view on some of the comments that we are seeing here?
Right. And Emmanuel, more sanctions are coming as reported, right? On the issue of that sanctions, because me personally, I think, bodies like SADC and the AEU, they don't do us any good, to be honest, if we have to look at it in a specific way. Because SADC, right, they know what's happening in Zimbabwe, all the human rights abuses, people being abducted, killed, and so forth. But they are quiet, they don't do anything. So why do we have a board like SADC which doesn't do anything? The African Union is equally useless, So, the Western countries should not be at the forefront of denouncing violence in Zimbabwe. It should be bodies like SADC and the AU and the African Union. Then the Western countries, they can, aid onto the pressure. But SADC is just quiet. It's just, as if it doesn't exist. Yet they know that there are human rights abuses. If you look at the
because most of those leaders in SADC, they're just protecting or serving face, because whatever they try to accuse any other leader of, they are pretty much pointing 4 other fingers at themselves, because they're equally as bad. So you've got the likes of Yoweri Museveni, for example. He cannot accuse ED of human rights abuses, because he is also even in Zimbabwe is actually in a worse situation than Uganda. But in terms of human rights, we have seen Yoweri Museveni with the likes of Bobby Wine and the way that he clamped down on the opposition in Zimbabwe. So all those leaders in SADC are afraid to speak out, because they also have plans to clamp down on the opposition in their country. So if they start talking, they don't also want people to be knocking on their door saying, hey, what are you doing now? So they choose the easy route, which is to keep silent. I think we had promising leaders like, for example, the Rwandan president, this guy Kagame, who came in, and he's done quite a lot for his country, but he's one of the most brutal dictators. I hear opposition pretty much doesn't exist in Rwanda. In fact, he clamped down on a lady who was trying to challenge him in the last election. This is a guy who gets 98%, 99% of the vote. Even no matter how much you might be likable, I think it's impossible to win with such a margin. So even though I think quite a lot of us respect him for at least the development work that he's doing in Rwanda. But that's not a reason for him to behave like that. So that's why you find the likes of Kagame also, they don't say anything. But we had at least one guy who tried to highlight some of the issues that we see today. Is this guy Kama, the guy who used to be the president of Zimbabwe. He tried, at least he did highlight issues in the way, but he stood alone. Basically, I remember at one of the meetings where they were trying to censure Mugabe, he basically no one supported him. So this is the kind of African leaders or African leadership that we see, and it's pretty much we are basically on our own.
Yeah, it's excuse me. It's more of corruption in most of these African countries. Like like a few weeks ago, we had this picture circulating of a bridge that was constructed in Zimbabwe. I think it's Pembe or something. I don't know where that place is. And the cost was said to be 1.8 million US dollars. But if you look at the size of the bridge, it's just a small bridge. Which would cost less than probably 100,000, right? But it was constructed at the cost of 1.8 million US dollars. Then a few days ago, I saw another article. I think now this one was in Nigeria, where a wooden bridge was said to have costed 10 million naira. Just and there was like a kind of an official opening, which was and most people, they were actually laughing to say, how on earth just a small wooden bridge can it cost 10 million naira? So we can actually see that in Africa, it's the modus operandi in Africa, especially when it comes to corruption. I've also seen cases in Cameroon where the human rights abuses is much, similar to Zimbabwe. I had one of my,
I think Cameroon is where we have the longest serving president in Africa, isn't it? This Paul Biya guy, I'm sure he's still.
Yes, what he was doing is when he targets his opponents, they do the same kind of thing like they do in Zimbabwe. They take these vehicles without number plates, then they bundle people, then they cut their heads, then they do all sorts of things, pulling brains out, intestines, everything. It's totally horrible. So it's the kind of the same thing that that is being done by ZANU-PF. So it's in Africa. Most countries, they are actually corrupt to the core. So I don't understand why some of these SADC governments were campaigning to say the sanctions on Zimbabwe must be lifted, yet they know that the conditions for sanctions to be lifted is because there should be at least the respect of human rights, the rule of law, democracy, and all sorts of things. How can sanctions be lifted when those conditions are not being met? And SADC, they know that these bad things are happening in Zimbabwe, but they just keep their mouths shut, which is very, very sad development, because we are not going anywhere with bodies like this one.
Yes, I think for me, you see, one of the things that I at least thank the West for, at least for us that ended up here, is the exposure. The indoctrination that we suffered at the hands of ZANU-PF when we were growing up. You would think that the West is the worst monster or evil thing that has ever happened to a human being. But after being exposed to to the systems, at least that are here, they are not in any way perfect. Don't get me wrong. I know some of you are just about to shoot. But all I'm trying to say, at least these countries are run efficiently. There is some basic, at least basic human rights. These governments respect human rights even when things are wrong, like in the case of George Floyd. We know that those who are involved in criminal activities like that, they are taken to, they are brought to book, and they suffer for their for their crimes. So you have that guy who who actually knelt on George Floyd's neck, is languishing in prison, and we know that the law is taking its course. But what we have, the problem we have with Africa is most of these people, especially this police officer, if it had happened to a country like Zimbabwe, for example, where you remember during the, was it August 1 demonstrations, you see a fellow military guy trying to tell the other guy who's shooting live bullets. You remember, I think I saw the same picture on Jonathan Moyo's Excel Gate. You know, this guy who's trying to say, no, don't do that. You know, the guy was caught on camera, and it's a typical example like this George Floyd thing. And this guy wasn't firing rubber bullets, by the way. This was live ammunition, and it could have been responsible for killing at least one or two of the victims of the August 1 shootings. But this guy has been promoted, and what we're hearing, actually, he's rising up the ranks within the army. This is the problem that we have with Africa, that people do bad things and there is no accountability, and this has got nothing to do with it's got nothing to do with the fact that it's basic human rights, right? I mean, if you are responsible for some criminal activities, that's why you find even Western governments, if a soldier is involved in extrajudicial killing, even in battle, if they can justify why they've killed someone, these are brought to book and they're prosecuted. And some of them, we have examples of people that are in jail because of being involved in such activity. And this is what we lack in Africa. I don't know what your view on this is.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to mention that point to say that if you remember, like, the wars like in Iraq and Afghanistan, some of the soldiers, if they misbehave during or at the front line or kill people unnecessarily, they will be, like kind of court-martialed, because they can actually be thrown in prison. I've seen some cases where some British soldiers were accused of human rights abuses in Iraq and Afghanistan, and some American soldiers, and they are actually, they were actually sent to jail, because they have to operate within a certain code of conduct, even on the front line, of which we don't have such things in Africa. If someone is accused of human rights abuse, they're actually promoted. What a joke is that? But you see here in the West, they have to abide by the rules of war. You can't just be a trigger-happy soldier, overzealous policeman, or anything like that. They have to be they have to be disciplined. And recently there was a policeman who was disciplined 2 weeks ago. There was an incident in London where he actually put, I think, his neck on him when arresting a suspect, and he was actually arrested and sent to court, and is now I think he's just waiting for the verdict, the outcome, because he didn't abide by the conduct, the Pace Evidence Act, or the police rules in arresting a suspect. But we don't have that in Africa. In Africa, they don't convict anyone, or even discipline them. So these abuses, they'll keep going on, because there is no deterrent in these kind of actions. Because if someone is sent to jail or prison for abusing a suspect, which means that others, they might also be deterred from doing such acts because of the prison sentence, of the prospect of going to jail. So until and unless African governments change, then things will remain as they are, and which is very, very unfortunate.
Yeah, it's quite unfortunate when you look at the likes of Jonathan Moyo, who were educated in the US, and you'd expect them to have learned a thing or two. I know there are some that are actually calling Jonathan Moyo our messiah. As you know, he's also fighting this current regime. But I have some serious issues with the likes of Jonathan Moyo. We know that they these are people that basically blow whichever way the wind is blowing, and I would really want him to be taken to task for some of the things that he did while he was in government. It's all of a sudden, all of us have forgotten the kind of things that he was involved in when he was in ZANU-PF. He spent almost 10 years involved in so many atrocities, well, that may not have actually led to people losing their lives. So the likes of Jonathan Moy, I have serious issues with him. I don't know, what's your take on that? I know that he has kind of garnered quite a lot of following based on the fact that he's taking a shot at the current regime. What's your view on?
Because people like Jonathan Moyo, we really know that, you know, they are kind of opportunists, right? Because if we see like the period when Jonathan Moyo was in government, he is the sole cause, probably, I would say, a major part of the problem, because he introduced IPA, he introduced the POSA, which were like kind of very repressive laws. You see, like the gathering of people, they cannot be more than 4 or something like that, right? He is one of the people who actually contributed to this to this regime's, you know, degrading and inhumane treatment of people because of his laws. Of course, they were repealed, but they were just, you know, kind of sugar-coated, which actually, you know, we would say that it's in ZANU-PF's DNA, because they are a repressive regime. So people like Jonathan Moyo, if he was still in ZANU-PF right now, I don't think he will be saying what he's saying. But because he's now out, he's been kicked out because of the factionalism and the G14 and so forth. He is now bringing out, you know, the secrets, whatever, you know, the fake.
A kind of seeking sympathy, right, from the masses. And I mean, knowing Jonathan Moyo before, he was in ZANU-PF, then he left ZANU-PF, then he came back to ZANU-PF. I think this is a guy that we have. I mean, he has beaten us so many times that you don't want to give him another chance. I have some very, very serious problem, and some of my issues with him are deep-seated.
If you also Xavier Kasukwere, I don't know why people say, Xavier will be good for president, yet the guy was so corrupt. And you know, most of the people, they know his house in somewhere in the Lowlands itself was a massive house that was
with
built
about
out
50 bedrooms or something.
Yes. So how would people say, you are good for president? I don't know how people think, you know, bring the lives of those people back into the fold to say that they can lead them. It's
especially so well. My issues, I think, are more personal with Jonathan Moy. I think Jonathan of all the, I mean, of the pack, I think Jonathan Moy is the one that roused me the most. He is a guy who, at least, you see, my issues with him is this is a guy who was anti-ZANU, then joined ZANU, then left ZANU, then joined ZANU again, and it became even worse. Every time he would leave and come back, he would kind of criticize ZANU and then rejoin ZANU. Then he does the same things that he was talking against when he was outside ZANU, and then I mean, this is a guy, I think, who whenever we manage to free the country, I think people like Jonathan Moy should be brought between a truth and reconciliation. You don't want to throw them in jail, but you want to definitely deal with such people, because he is responsible for some of the pain that we are even suffering today. It's because of people like ED did not even have the confidence to do some of the things they do, because until obviously Jonathan Moy came into the picture. He's the one that taught them how to cheat the system and also how to be spin doctors and all that kind of stuff. So I have serious issues with Jonathan Moy. It's unfortunate that there's quite a few of us that feel that this is the Messiah we've been waiting for. I've followed him on Twitter. He seems to be speaking a different language now, but we know that it's only for him to gain some sympathy. But once he is given another chance to join ZANU-PF, he will join.
Definitely he will. He will, because you remember Jonathan Moy, before he joined ZANU-PF, he actually wrote a book denouncing ZANU-PF. At the time, he was, I think he had just left Ford Foundation, where he was actually accused of $10 million fraud. Then he came to ZANU-PF. So when they recruited him, they knew that this guy is not straightforward, because he actually ran away and when he was accused of that $10 million fraud at Ford Foundation, right? So they took that person, then they, he came into, he joined them, then he left them. You remember the Cholocho Declaration, where he was accused of trying to overthrow, the government. I don't know how the story ended, but he was again brought back. That's when he crafted.
In fact, at the time, he was working very closely with ED. That Cholocho Declaration, they had met in Cholocho to try and unseat Robert Mugabe. As we know, with any criminal activity, once you don't agree on how the spoils will be shared, then obviously you then start accusing each other. But this is a guy that I think Moyo was actually working in close, was working very closely with Emerson Mnangagwa at the time, and now he is out there calling him a Gukura Hundist. We don't dispute that ED has got blood on his hands, but I mean, the likes of Jonathan Moy, I think they are the least people that you would want to even speak in the room. He is the last person that you would want to speak, especially when it comes to promoting democracy in Zimbabwe. Yeah, so there we are now as we wrap up this show for tonight. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll be giving you live updates throughout the day as we've got our guys on the ground. As soon as things open up in Zimbabwe, we will be streaming live here on Zim Daily throughout the whole day tomorrow. So stay tuned as we go through the events for tomorrow. Advocate Chapwania, is there anything else that you want to highlight as we
right? I would just want to say to our viewers, thank you for joining us tonight. And if you happen to go to any demonstrations around the world, for this 31st of July, please take care. As I mentioned before, it will be better for some of you not to wear any, party clothing or regalia, because you obviously become a target. So please just make sure you are safe. It is your democratic right to protest. So no retreat, as my brother Brian Baz is saying there. And that just that is the endai demonstration, make your voices heard, but in a peaceful way. We always say to our viewers and listeners, please do not be involved in acts of violence. We just need a peaceful protest, no violence, please. Otherwise, they will target you, then they will try to ban our future protests. So we are saying, if you have to go, it is your constitutional right to demonstrate peacefully against the government policies and just take the government to task, so that at least you can have things changed in your favor and in favor of your children. Thank you.
Yes, and regarding tomorrow, Advocate, what are your plans for tomorrow? Well, today it's actually
obviously we'll be at the embassy in London tomorrow, where we'll be joining the protesters and also covering
and I'm sure you're gonna run a live stream from there. It's unfortunate. I'm also planning to at least attend the protest from my part of the world here where I am. But we will be relying on you to give us a live stream of what is happening in London tomorrow. And those that are close to London, please, if you're not if you can take some time off to go on a beach somewhere, I think this is a cause that is worth fighting for. So please take some time off, miss a shift, and let's meet in London tomorrow and see what we can do, at least to support the cause back home. As we know, one of the things that as Zimbabweans are accused of is that lack of unity. When we call for such things, many of us basically kind of agree and never really turn up. But we're hoping tomorrow will be different. Let's meet in London and show the world that we are. Let's show some solidarity with those that are on the ground in Zimbabwe. At least here, we're allowed to protest. If you're in the US, I think there's something that is planned in DC or Texas or wherever, whichever part of the US you are. I think if you listen to the news, especially the Zimbabwe news, you will know exactly where those, the areas where people are protesting. In Canada, we also understand there's something planned for Toronto. And South Africa, we are hearing the plans in Cape Town at the Zimbabwean consulate in Cape Town, and I believe Johannesburg is also going to be running a few, also leading a protest. And right here in the United Kingdom, we are also going to be at the forefront. Advocate Chapwanya, who's also a co-presenter on this show, is going to be streaming live from London tomorrow. And we also want to, as we conclude this show tonight, we'll just run through some of the comments that you have been sending us. We just want to make sure that we've not left any comment. Thanks, Hans Ngua, guys. Wakutanga Nguai. I don't know what he's making reference to here. Kurukutanga or Anzi protest Rutanga Nguai. Do you have any Yegu London Rutanga Nguai, Mr. Advocate?
Right, I think there's someone who posted a comment earlier on before Vuka Zimbabwe. If Vuka Zimbabwe, if you are here, if you can probably leave some details on what time the protest is starting, I think it would help our viewers and listeners. Vuka Zimbabwe, if you can hear me, if you can put some details. Yeah, I'll
so anyone with information on the times, I think it's Kurarako Kanagumugirako will be the way forward here. You don't want to be late for the protest, so chingogara kana usati warara wotongomuka wototanga rwendo kuenda kuLondon and tikati tosangana mangwana kuLanzo tichiona kuti Zimbabwe House, and I think, do you know exactly where the embassy is? Maybe you might want to give
should be Strand. I'll check on the information. I'll check on the information, then can put it on the
right. Yeah, so we've got propaganda must fall. This is a comment from Emmanuel Nyakonda. ZPF must go. Musango. Yes, Tanzania Musango and Vuka ZANU PF must go. Do not do demonstrations. This is Callistos Makunde, who is against demonstrations. There is COVID-19, and this is his reason for this is a serious pandemic. I think ZANU-PF is a more of a serious pandemic than COVID, at least as far as I'm aware. You can survive. So if you want to argue on which one is more serious than the other, I would argue that ZANU-PF is a more serious pandemic that needs to be dealt with very seriously. So there's a constitution in Zimbabwe. This is wait for 2023. So the same constitution, by the way, Callistos Makunde allows Zimbabweans to protest. You cannot wait for the next elections. That's why there are these provisions in the constitution that allow people to voice their concerns whenever between elections. If you feel the government is not, if you have issues with the way things are being run, there are provisions in the constitution in between elections to voice your anger at the government. I've lost loved ones with COVID. Okay. Callistos Makunde is arguing that think about lives, Varumem Sadaro. Okay, so that's an argument there. I don't know how valid this is. If BLM protest went ahead, people were willing to risk their lives for a Black Lives Matter rally or protest. We saw them in New York, London, there was quite a lot of them. I think as long as you practice social distancing, and also if you take the measures, if you bring a mask and do what you have to do, I think it is safe to protest. So Musachizirewanu, Mr. Callisto Sandiga. ZANU-PF must go. Yes, we all agree. ZANU-PF apologist. Zimbabweans, don't be fooled by failed leader. All right, thanks a lot, Jaon, for that comment. Are we in Harare? Yes, it is on tomorrow. The protest is going ahead. And then we have a comment here from Brenda Sitsenga, Chamisa Chete, and it avasati vai ina mahos ekumambukadza achikandirwa mabarricades nai. All right, so that's a comment there from Cleana. She's saying Nyuchi and horses does not see eye to eye. Okay, and you are on payroll, we know. All right, so those are some of the comments that we are seeing from the stream. If you're joining us here or on the spot, it has been such a lovely evening where we have looked at the headlines for today and also the plans for tomorrow, the 31st of July 2020. The demonstration or the protests are still on. Do not be swayed by some of the messages that you've been receiving. The police have got no power to ban a protest because they are not above the law. The law, what governs a country, is the constitution, and this is the blueprint that all of us borrow from. So as far as we are concerned, there are sections within the constitution that allow us to peacefully demonstrate. So whatever the police minister or whoever is speaking from the police, I think we saw also in the news today that one of the news conferences that the police ran a couple of days ago has been declared illegal by the courts. So they cannot just operate with impunity like that. They have to follow the law. So protests are allowed by the constitution. Diaspora is supporting financial wise. People back there must remember it's our money keeping the economy running. ZANU-PF looted everything. So there are some who argue that those in the diaspora should not even comment on such issues if they are not willing to be in the forefront of the protest in Zimbabwe. So yeah, I think to some extent they have an argument, because you cannot outsource a protest. You can't be saying go and protest while we are set here in our comfortable homes. That's an argument, but there's also another side of the same argument that says diaspora is supporting. I think it goes without saying that many of those in the diaspora have kept the country afloat through ensuring that we support our family members. I know that there are many family members back home that rely on the financial support that they receive from the diaspora. So I think the diaspora does play a role. So maybe not as significant as those that are on the ground, but definitely, I think this is what Sly Mukanya is saying, that ZANU-PF looted everything. The only reason why we still have a country is because of the support that is coming from the diaspora. Bring back our money. Thanks, Mr. Nyakonda, for that. ZANU-PF must go. How does one download VPN? So these are some of the questions, as there are plans to shut down the internet tomorrow. We are trying to help each other here to find ways of circumventing some of these unconstitutional plans by the government. The internet is basically, there are people that rely on the internet either for education purposes or for, in fact, so you can just shut the internet like that. In fact, I think even in some cases, if you shut the internet, you're actually contributing to loss of life, because the internet is such instrumental in ensuring that we run our hospitals and or many other things that rely on the internet. All right, how does one download VPN? I think if you go on your App Store or on the Google Play Store, just Google VPN before they shut the internet. So you want to make sure that you have that VPN before they put the measures that they are planning to in place. All right, ZANU-PF must fall. They should send soldiers. ZANU-PF must fall. That's another comment. Thank you very much, Ruth, for your comment. We all agree, and this is the common theme from the hundreds of comments that we've received tonight. Pretty much 99.99% of the comments are in support of the protest, and vanhu vari kuti zvakwana, and we've had enough. So kwanele, I think most of us have never known anything apart from ZANU. All right, let's hear from this comment as we conclude this program tonight. Truth be told, Jonathan is the least of our worries, but all must be held to account. Thank you very much, Lydia, for your comment. I think we all agree that right now, Jonathan Moyo, I think is a distraction. This is a battle that we need to fight another day. We all agree on that, but we just thought we could put it out there that those that think that the Messiah we've been waiting for is Jonathan Moyo can have another thought coming. ZANU-PF must go. Thank you very much, Zinja Zombe. And then we have another comment here from Sir Felix Zamara. ZANU-PF must go. This Jono thing is a side track. Yes, Jonathan Moyo, right now, I totally agree with you, at least as of today. He is a sideshow, but let us not forget. Let's not assume that just because he seems to be, on the people's side, he has all of a sudden changed. We know, at least I can count a number of times where Jonathan Moyo has been on the people's side and then gone back to ZANU, people's side, gone back to ZANU, people's side. Then, so we know. I mean, you don't have to keep trying to, the same horse when you know very well that it's how it behaves. So we Johnson. So thank you very, very much. The last comment for tonight is Johnson is the West, including Kasuku, where I said to know much about the whereabouts of Itai Dzamara. Yes. So that's it for us, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Zimbabwe. You stay safe and make sure that you take part in the protest tomorrow, whichever way that you can support the protest, either through encouraging someone to go or at least attending that protest in person. Let us ensure that the protest is peaceful. Do not give them a reason to clamp down on the otherwise or the people that are planning a peaceful protest, and don't hijack the people's project by causing or perpetrating violence. So we are encouraging everyone, if you're thinking of going out to protest tomorrow, of which is the majority, at least from the mood or what we're getting out of Zimbabwe, 90% of those that, at least more than 90% of those that we have interacted with are showing some indication of taking part. Let's ensure we unite against this common enemy, the enemy of the people. A very good night to everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. This is once again zimdaily.com. Join us tomorrow. We have our guys on the ground that are going to be giving you a live coverage of the planned protest tomorrow. Thank you once again and good night. God bless. Bye.